Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's FPL Yusuf and I'm back again with another video. Today we're going to be going over our final team selection for game week 27 and we're also going to be talking about some key questions in this video relating to game week 27. We'll talk about the Spurs midfielder dilemma, whether it's Richarlison, whether it's Maddison, whether it's Son. We'll discuss Hwang's injury and a few other players' injury, and we're going to look at my final team selection before game week 27 starts. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so first up on key questions, let's talk about the Maddison versus Son versus Richarlison dilemma. So I think a lot of people probably this week will be looking to wildcard right before we come into a double, followed by a blank, and then we have a good run of fixtures for certain teams, Chelsea, Man City, and a few others as well. So I think this week you're going to see a lot of transfers, especially pushed in towards the people who are playing in 29. So which midfielder do we go with? Now, I think Son is by far and away the number one option. You know, he's guaranteed pretty much to play 90 minutes. He's on penalties for Tottenham. He is the main man. He's the talisman. He's the captain. And I think he's just, minutes-wise, as well as goal-scoring-wise, he is just the best. He's the one you want. He's the best finisher there. Obviously, we'd like to see him playing through a more central role, but even when he's out on the left, he's still a problem. You know, he's played there for most of his career anyway, so it's nothing new. I think the real debate is sort of between Richarlison or Maddison, and which way do we go with it? So Richarlison offers something that Maddison doesn't, which is the goal threat, whereas Maddison offers the assist threat. At the time of recording, this is Friday. We're sort of Friday afternoon, so it's quite late in the game week. But there is talk about Richarlison possibly being injured and that he hasn't trained since their last game. Now, I'm not sure yet. The press conference hasn't gone out yet, so we're unsure on how fit Richarlison actually is. At the start of the week, I was very convinced that Richarlison was the better option. You know, he was cheaper, he's less percentage owned than Maddison, and I think he just offers a better goal threat. However, with this news that he hasn't trained since their last game, and bearing in mind they've had a week off as well because obviously they didn't play on the weekend, it does worry me slightly, and my thoughts are kind of pushing towards maybe a little bit more for James Maddison as opposed to Richarlison on this one. Now, Maddison, obviously you have to put up the extra money to get him. I think he does offer a little bit, maybe a few more routes to points because he's on set pieces. He'll have direct free kicks. He'll have corners. Especially with Porro not being in the team, he will pretty much be on all set pieces. So I think Maddison does offer that little bit more. I know you're going to pay more for him, but I think the minutes wise, as well as that, I think he is the way to go. So I think for me personally, Son, well, I'm keeping as number one, hands down. If you've got the money, I would say just go for him. And if we're looking between the Richarlison and Maddison, I think the uncertainty around Richarlison at the moment, I think it probably swings more in Maddison's favour for this one. Okay, so Hwang Hee-chan, what do we do with him? Now, this one is probably a frustrating transfer for a lot of people, myself included. I used a free transfer to bring him in last week against Sheffield. He blanked, only a 3.0, which was just the 2 for playing in the clean sheet. And now he's gone out with a hamstring injury. At the time of recording, as I said, it's Friday afternoon, so the press conferences haven't all finished yet. After hearing Gary O'Neill when they played Brighton in the FA Cup game, it didn't sound too positive that Hwang was going to be back for this game against Newcastle. And it's a shame because I think this fixture may have suited Wolves more so than the Sheffield United game. They won't have as much of the ball. They'll be able to play on the counter-attack. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like Hwang is going to be available for this game. So what do you do with him? I think you just have to get rid. I think we just have to cut our losses, say it as what it is, which is just this was an L transfer. These things happen sometimes in FPL. I think going forward, I would rather bring in someone this week, as we'll talk about later in the video with my own transfers, as who I'm going to replace him with. You know, the Spurs midfielder, there's Jarrod Bowen, there's a few other options. But I think just for the sole fact there's a hamstring injury and he's just come back from an injury not too long ago, I think it's just time just to move him out and just say that transfer didn't work out and let's just cut our losses with that. So I think if you've got Hwang, I think you move him on. And the final key question is around wildcarding. Should you wildcard? Shouldn't you wildcard? To be honest with you, this really is just a team-dependent question. It's a team-dependent answer as well. It's all going to depend on how your team's set up. Now, I know some people may not have many players already for game week 29. You know, there's talk about do you use a free hit, do you not? I think for me personally, if you've got 4 players or under playing in 29, I think it's a viable option to free hit because it's going to be too many hits to bring. Like to get you like near enough to a starting 11. Whereas if you free hit, you can get a starting 11 and a bench out just in case someone doesn't play. Wildcarding is a different sort of approach. I think wildcarding, there's pros and cons to it. Pros obviously being you can set yourself up nicely for double game week 28. You can navigate the blank nicely and then still have players to play from 30 onwards. The downside of it is obviously it's quite a far gap between now and probably the optimal time to use your bench boost, which a lot of people do as a tactic. They'll wild card 1 week and then use the bench boost the following week, knowing that all those players they brought in are all going to be playing. So I think this one kind of depends solely on what your situation looks like and how your team looks. But for me personally, I've used my wildcard a few weeks back and it actually has helped me navigate this quite well. I'm going into game week 29, the blank, with hopefully between 9 and 11 players. Could get the full 11 for a minus, but I don't think it's necessary that week. So yeah, I think wildcarding this week, it's not a no, it's not a yes, it's solely dependent on your situation in your team. There is a possibility that I take a -4 this week. As I said earlier, Hwang is going to be out, so this is all dependent on who I replace him with. So as you can see on screen, I've got two options right now. The first one is Jarrod Bowen. Now, Bowen is someone who I've become much more interested in now that Lucas Paqueta is back. I think with Paqueta on the pitch, even though he didn't get any direct goal involvement with Bowen last week, I think he just makes West Ham play better. He opens up more space. He opens up more chances, and I think Bowen is just a better asset when Kudus and Paqueta are both together behind him. He's got a good game week against Everton this week. He's Jarrod Bowen's form away from home this whole season has been exceptional. He's been very good away from home. It's coupled up with another game next week, which is at home to Burnley, and then he obviously does have the added benefit of playing in game week 29 as well. So I think Jarrod Bowen for me is probably the one I'm swinging to just. But also, as you can see on the screen, there is James Maddison there, and it is a really difficult one because Tottenham have got Crystal Palace at home. I think Maddison's ceiling, consistent wise, is higher than Jarrod Bowen's. Despite Bowen playing up front for West Ham, I think Maddison is playing in the better team, the better attack. I think when Spurs click, they are a problem and they can be dangerous. They will create chances, and Maddison will be the key part to that. They're roughly about the same price. Bowen 7.7, Maddison is, I think, at the time of recording, is like 7.98 million. So there's really nothing in between them. They both play in 29. Obviously, I think after game week 29, Spurs do have the better fixtures. But it's not to say West Ham's fixtures are bad. They're just on paper, they're against bigger teams. But as we've seen this season with Newcastle, defensively, they haven't been great. So I wouldn't really think too much into that. So for me personally, it will be either Bowen or Maddison. I'm probably going to leave this one as close to the deadline as possible just to see if we get any early team news surrounding them. So as you guys can see on screen, this is how my team will line up for game week 27. I'm going to be starting David Raya in goal, of course, Sheffield United away. I know it's an away game for Arsenal, but I will be doubling up on the defence with them, with Gabriel as well. I think it's just a no-brainer. If you haven't got an Arsenal defender, just go and get one. I mean, I can't imagine many people don't. There is a viable option that you double up on them. I know a lot of people were talking about should you go for an Odegaard or a Havertz in midfield. Again, it's a viable option. I put Havertz as one of my differentials in my video earlier in the week. I think if you're looking for security and safety, you can't go wrong with the Arsenal defence. They've been the best defence all season long. And yeah, you really can't go wrong with them. Virgil van Dijk is coming in for me at Liverpool. He's a player who I'm reluctant to sell, if I'm being honest with you. And I think for the time being, I'm just going to hold him. Nottingham Forest away. It's not the best fixture in the world. It's not the worst. I think if you've got a Liverpool defender, which I don't think many people will have at the moment. So I think if you're one of those people who actually do have like a Connor Bradley, or maybe you've got an Andrew Robertson, I think just keep them, play them this week, and then decide what you want to do next week with them. Obviously, if they're playing Man City. Pau Torres. Now, I think a lot of people will have either Pau Torres or a Villa defender, and Luton is a good fixture. Of course, on paper, it's a great fixture, but I think it's more of a good fixture for the attackers rather than the defenders. And there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding Pau Torres at the moment and how fit he actually is. He seems to keep coming back from injury, and then he seems to pick up a knock or a little hit here and there. It's not ideal. It's not ideal owning someone like that. So I think in the next few weeks, if it comes out that it's a bit more serious of injury, I think I'll just aim to sort of shift him out and move him out of my team. But yeah, so like I said, if you've got him, I think you hold him this week because I think the news that we heard a couple of days ago was it was fairly positive. So he should be in line for starting this game. If he doesn't, then I think there is a question to be asked whether or not you keep him, the same as a lot of people are doing with the Stupinian right now as well. Onto the midfield, Saka goes without saying. Arsenal's best attacker on penalties against the worst defence, and no disrespect to the Sheffield United fans, the worst team in the league this season. Saka, we don't need to go into that. He is just nailed on. Son, like I said, I wildcarded a few weeks back, and I did bring him in on my wildcard for this reason, so that after the blank, that I knew that I'd have someone who was guaranteed to play in 29, but also has good fixtures as well, and is playing in a good attack. So I'm hoping if Richarlison is out injured, that Son will be playing the number 9. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. because it just makes him such a better asset. So yeah, Son is coupled up with Saka in there. Now, I've started hwanging this, but it will be either James Maddison or Jarrod Bowen. I think I've come to the conclusion I will be taking a -4 this week to get one of them in. So it will be one of them. Like I explained in the previous bit, you know, both of them have their upsides. Both are great players as well. So we will see when it comes to that. And of course, my hero, my main man, Douglas Luiz. I can't leave It's a really tricky one, this last one, because it's either Douglas Luiz or Pedro Neto, and it's a really tricky one. But I think I'm swinging more towards Douglas Luiz just because he did me a massive favour last week and got back up massive hauls. I think I've got to show that love and keep that faith with him that he's going to continue to do his thing. On to the forwards. Erling Haaland will be my captain. There is a lot of debate whether it's Saka or Haaland, and I don't hate Saka being captain. For me personally, I just think Haaland, off the back of a game where he's just scored 5 goals, he scored 2 goals and got an assist, I believe, against Manchester United in the reverse fixture at the start of the season. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer on this one. I'm putting it on Haaland. They're at the Etihad. They're in great form. If De Bruyne starts, he's just come off the back with 4 assists as well. So he's going to be in red-hot form. So yeah, for me, you know, Manchester United obviously got their own defensive troubles, but Haaland and the captaincy, they just kind of go hand in hand this week for me. And then the other two up front is obviously Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney. Both of them in their own rights are great players. Both are very good finishers. Obviously, Toney has the penalties, whereas Watkins is kind of just playing in the better team with the better attack. So I'm hoping for points from both of them, fingers crossed. But yeah, hopefully this will be a good game week. I'm fairly happy with how my team's set up. Like I said, the only choice I have to make tonight is just whether or not I trade Hwang out for either Bowen or Maddison. But like I said, I'll probably make that decision tomorrow morning. And leave it as close to the deadline as possible, just to give myself time to think about which way I want to go with it as well. Because like I said, both of them obviously have upsides. They're both great players. They both play in 29. They're roughly about the same price. So there's not a massive amount in them. I think I'm just going to have to sort of figure out which one I would be more happy to hold long term. I think that will be the ultimate decider. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It hasn't been as much of an in-depth one as usual. It's kind of just like a little brief run about how my team's setting up going into 27, as well as like some key questions that maybe some people may have some decisions to make around. Hopefully this video has helped you in making those decisions. If you have enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe down below. I will be back probably at the early start of next week to talk about the double game week 28. We'll get onto some transfer targets. We'll look at some different players that we could bring in. What's happening with Dominic Solanke, a whole load of questions to answer, but that's all for next week. It will either be Monday or Tuesday. But like I said, if you have enjoyed the video, please drop it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. I hope this game week goes well for you guys, and I will see you next time.